Hey guys, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel. I know I haven't posted in such a long time. I've just been so busy with my internship, working, taking a summer class, but the summer class ends this week. So I'm hoping to get more stuff up on this channel, and I want to post more on my IGTV on Instagram. I have one video up, but I plan on doing more than just one. So today we're going to talk about the Golden State Killer because you know I love true crime. So if you want to hear about that case, then just continue watching. Okay, so to talk about the Golden State Killer case, he was captured, so that is a super good thing. I find true crime super interesting. I've listened to a bunch of podcasts on this case specifically. Crime Junkie and My Favorite Murder have covered the capturing of the Golden State Killer. So let's just get right into it. So he was a serial killer, serial rapist, and burglar who committed at least 13 murders, more than 50 rapes, and over 100 burglaries in California from 1974 to 1986. He's believed to be responsible for at least 3 crime sprees throughout California, he had a different couple of names. So like in Southern California or in the Sacramento area, he was known as the East Area Rapist. But he was also known as, in Southern California, called the Original Night Stalker. He was suspected to start as only a burglar. Before moving to the Sacramento area, he taunted his victims and threatened his victims through phone calls and other communication lines. During the decades-long investigation, several suspects have been cleared through DNA evidence, alibi, or just other investigative methods. In 2001, DNA testing indicated that the East Area Rapist and the Original Night Stalker were the same person. The case was a factor from establishment of California's DNA database, which collects DNA from all accused and convicted felons in California, and has been called second only to Virginia's in effectiveness in solving cold cases. To heighten awareness that the uncaught killer, but now he's caught, operated throughout California, crime writer Michelle McNamara coined the name Golden State Killer in early 2013. The FBI and local law enforcement agencies held a news conference on June 15, 2016 to announce a renewed nationwide effort offering a $50,000 reward for his capture. On April 24, 2018, authorities charged 72-year-old United States Navy veteran and former police officer Joseph James DeAngelo with 8 counts of first-degree murder based upon DNA evidence. This was also the first announcement connecting the Visalia ransacker crimes to the Golden State Killer. Owing to California's statute of limitations on pre-2017 rape cases, DeAngelo cannot be charged with 1970s rapes, but he was charged in August 2018 with 13 related kidnapping and abduction. Okay, so let's talk about the crimes. So DNA evidence links the Golden State Killer to 8 murders in Goleta, Ventura, Dana Point, and Irvine, 2 other murders in Goleta, lacking some DNA evidence. Investigators suspect that the same killer was involved in 3 other murders, 2 in Rancho Cordova and 1 in Visalia. The offender also committed more than 50 known rapes in the California counties of Sacramento, Contra Costa, Stanislaus, San Joaquin, Alameda, Santa Clara, and Yolo, in addition to hundreds of incidents of burglaries, thefts, vandalism, peeping, stalking, and prowling. Okay, so the Visalia ransacker was from April 1974 to December 1975. So it was long suspected that the training ground of the criminal who would become the Golden State Killer was Visalia in California. Let's see here. Sorry, I have my notes, and I think I lost my notes track. Over a period of 20 months, the ransacker is believed to have been responsible for 1 murder and around 120 burglaries. Most of the ransacker's activities involved breaking into houses, rifling through or vandalizing the owner's possessions, scattering women's clothing around, stealing coins and low value of personal items, while often ignoring banknotes and other valuable items which were in plain sight. In late April 2018, the Visalia chief of police stated that there was no DNA linking D'Angelo to the Central Valley cases. His department has other evidence that will play a role in the investigation, and that he was confident that the Visalia ransacker had been captured. Though the statutes of limitations of the burglars have been expired, D'Angelo was formally charged on August 13, 2018 with the first-degree murder of Claude Snelling in 1975. So let's talk about the East Area Rapist name that he was given. That was from June 1976 to July 1979. So the Golden State Killer was believed to be moved to Sacramento area, progressing from burglary to rape in mid-1976. The crimes initially centered on the unincorporated areas of Carmichael, Citrus Heights, and Rancho Cordova, east of Sacramento. His initial MO was to stalk middle-class neighborhoods at night in search of women who were alone in one-story homes, usually near a school, creek, trail, or other open space that would provide a quick escape. He was seen a number of times, but always successfully fled. On one occasion, he shot and seriously wounded a young pursuer. Most victims had seen or heard a prowler on their property before the attacks, and many had experienced break-ins. Police believed that the offender would conduct extensive research, but he would go to the neighborhoods a lot in the targeted neighborhood that he wanted to go to, looking into windows, prowling into yards before selecting a home to attack. It was believed that he sometimes entered the homes of future victims to unlock windows, unload guns, and plant ligatures for later use. He frequently telephoned the future victims, sometimes for months in advance to learn their daily routines. Although he originally targeted women alone in their homes or with children, the offender eventually preferred attacking couples. His usual method was to break in through a window or a sliding glass door and awake the sleeping occupants with a flashlight, threatening them with a handgun. Victims were then bound with ligatures, which were often shoelaces, which he found or he brought with them, blindfolded and gagged with towels, which he ripped into strips. The female victim was usually forced to tie up her male companion before she was bound. The bindings were often so tight that the victim's hands were numb for hours after being untied. He separated the couple, often stacking dishes on the male's back and threatening to kill everyone in the house if he heard them rattle. He moved the woman to the living room and often raped her repeatedly, sometimes for several hours. The offender sometimes spent hours in the home ransacking closets and drawers, eating food in the kitchen, drinking beer, raping the female again, or making additional threats. Victims sometimes thought that he had left the house before he jumped from the darkness, is what they would say. The offender typically stole items, often personal objects and items of little value, but occasionally cash and firearms. He then crept away, leaving victims uncertain if he had left. The offender was believed to escape on foot through a series of yards and then use a bicycle to go home or to a car, making extensive use of parks, schoolyards, creek beds, and often open spaces which kept him off the streets. The rapist operated in Sacramento County when the first attacks in June 1976 until May 1977. After a 3-month gap, he struck in a nearby San Joaquin County in September before returning to Sacramento for all but one of the next 10 attacks. The rapist attacked 5 times during the summer of 1978 in Stanislaus and Yolo counties before disappearing again for 3 months. Attacks then moved primarily to the Contra Costa County in October and lasted until July 1979. So now I kind of want to talk about the murders that the East Area Rapist committed, even though they're all the same person. A young Sacramento couple, Brian, which was a military policeman at the Mather Air Force Base, and Katie Majori, I think that's how you say her name, were walking their dog in the Rancho Cordova area on the night of February 2nd, 1978, near where 5 East Area Rapist attacks had occurred. The Majoris fled after a confrontation in the street, but were chased down and shot dead. Some investigators suspected that they'd been murdered by the East Area Rapist because of the proximity to the other attack's location, and a shoelace was found nearby. The FBI announced on June 15, 2016, that it was confident that the East Area Rapist murdered the Majoris. Okay, so now his other name, the original Night Stalker, was from October 1979 to May 1986. So shortly after rape committed on July 5th, 1979, the East Area Rapist moved to Southern California and first struck in Santa Barbara County in October. The attacks lasted until 1981, and the rapist began to kill his victims. Only the couple in the first attack survived, alerting neighbors and forcing the intruder to flee. The other victims were murdered by gunshot or bludgeoning. Since the East Area Rapist was not linked to these crimes for decades, he was known as the Night Stalker in the area before being renamed the original Night Stalker after serial killer Richard Ramirez received the former nickname. Okay, so let's talk about what happened in 1979. So on October 1st, an intruder broke in and tied up a Goleta couple. Alarmed by hearing him say, I'll kill him," to himself, the man and woman tried to escape when he left the room, and the woman screamed. Realizing that the alarm had been raised, the intruder fled on bicycle. A neighbor, which was an actual FBI agent, responded to the noise and pursued the perpetrator, who abandoned the bicycle and a knife and fled on foot through local backyards. The attack was linked to the Offerman Manning murders by shoe prints and twine used to bind the victims. On December 30th, 44-year-old Robert Offerman and 35-year-old Deborah Alexandra Manning were found shot dead in Offerman's condominium on Avenda, Pepquina, and Goleta. Offerman's bindings were untied, indicating that he had lunged at the attacker. Neighbors had heard gunshots. Paw prints of a large dog were found at the scene, leading to speculation that the killer may have brought one with him. The killer also broke into the vacant adjoining residence and stole a bicycle, later found abandoned on a street north of the scene, from a third residence in the complex. Okay, so now let's move to 1980. So on March 13th, 33-year-old Charlene Smith and a 43-year-old Lemon Smith, who was about to be appointed as judge, were found murdered in their Ventura home. Charlene Smith had been raped. A log from the woodpile on the side of the house was used to bludgeon the victims to death. Their wrists and ankles had been bound with drapery cord. An unusual Chinese knot, a diamond knot, was used on Charlene's wrists. The same knot was noted in the Sacramento East Area Rapist attacks, at least one confirmed case of which was publicly known. The murderer was therefore briefly given the name Diamond Knot Killer. I haven't heard that name. These other names that I've said I have heard of, but Diamond Knot Killer I haven't heard. On August 19th, 24-year-old Keith Eli Harrington and 27-year-old Patrice Briscoe Harrington were found bludgeoned to death in their home on Cockleshell Drive in Dana Point's Shores gated community. Patrice Harrington had also been raped. Although there was evidence that the Harringtons' wrists and ankles were bound, no ligatures or murder weapon were found at the scene. The Harringtons had been married for 3 months at the time of their death. Patrice was a nurse in Irvine, and Keith was a medical student at UC Irvine. Keith's brother, Bruce, later spent nearly $2 million supporting California Proposition 69, authorizing DNA collection from all California felons and certain other criminals. Okay, so 1981. On February 26, 28-year-old Manuela Withen was raped and murdered in her Irvine home. Although her body had signs of being tied before she was bludgeoned, no ligatures or murder weapon were found at the scene. The victim was married and her husband was hospitalized, and she was alone at the time of the attack. Detectives noted that her TV was found in the backyard, possibly the killer's attempt to make the crime appear to be a botched robbery. On July 27, 35-year-old Sherry Domingo and 27-year-old Gregory Sanchez were the original Night Stalker's 10th and 11th murder victims. Both were attacked in Domingo's residence on Toltec Way in Goleta, which was several blocks south of the Robert Offerman's home, where she was living temporarily, and it was owned by a deceased relative and up for sale. The offender entered the house through a small bathroom window. Sanchez had been tied and was shot and wounded in a cheek before bludgeoned to death with a garden tool. Some believe that Sanchez may have realized he was dealing with a man responsible for the Offerman Manning murders and tried to tackle the killer rather than being tied up. Again, no neighbors responded to the gunshot. Sanchez's head was covered with clothes pulled from the closet. Domingo was raped and bludgeoned. Bruises on her wrists and ankles indicated that she had been tied, although the restraints were missing and not found at the scene. A piece of shipping twine was found near the bed, and fibers from an unknown source was scattered over her body. Authorities believe that the attacker may have worked as a painter or in a similar job in the Cal Real Shopping Center. Okay, and then let's talk about 1986. So on May 4th, 18-year-old Janelle Lisa Cruz was found after she was raped and bludgeoned to death in her Irvine home. Her family was on vacation in Mexico at the time of the attack. A pipe wrench reported missing by Cruz's stepfather was thought to be the murder weapon. The Southern California murders were not initially thought to be connected by investigators in their respective jurisdictions. A Sacramento detective strongly believed that the East Area rapist was responsible for the Goleta attacks, but the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department attributed them to a local career criminal who was later murdered. Investigating the crimes not committed in the Goleta caused local police to follow false leads related men who were close to the female victims. One person later cleared was charged with 2 murders. The cases were linked almost entirely by DNA testing many years later. Okay, so now I want to talk about the suspect profile. So the physical characteristics are considered factual based on crime scene evidence and nearly universal agreement by victims and law enforcement. So he was a white male, about 5'10", slender, athletic build, size 9 to a 9.5 shoe, type A blood, non-secretor, which sperm does not contain blood group antigens, and physically agile and capable of sprinting, bicycling, and scaling fences. The next probable characteristics are considered like a small percentage of victims described the perpetrator differently. So these characteristics are just like a couple people said this. They described their victims, or they described their perpetrator this way. So they said he was an 18 to 25-year-old when the rapes began in 1976. Authorities believed him to be between 60 and 75 years old in 2018. Blonde or brown hair, blue or light-colored eyes, and an exceptionally small penis. That's how they described him. I don't know. So according to the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, microscopic paint chips were found at 3 crime scenes, 2 homicides, and 1 rape. This suggests that the Golden State Killer may have worked in construction, possibly using a paint spray gun. Construction work had been ongoing near the 1979 Goleta murder scene, and a cold case investigator contacted the developer in 2013 to identify subcontractors working at the site and obtain employment records. So now kind of my favorite part of the whole thing is the psychological profile, because I love Criminal Minds, so like I love listening to all that. So after criminologists matched evidence found at the Southern California murder scenes, a psychological profile of the Golden State Killer was compiled based on just the analysis that they came up with. According to Leslie D'Ambrosia, primary author of the profile, the Golden State Killer probably had the following characteristics. So 1, that he had an emotional age equivalent to a 26 to 30-year-old at the same time the murders began in 1979. He was engaged in paraphilic behaviors and brutal sex in his personal life, engaged in sex with prostitutes, had some knowledge of police investigation methods and evidence gathering techniques. He was sexually functional, capable of all of that. He dressed well, would not stand out in upscale neighborhoods. He lived or worked near Ventura, California in 1980. He was in good physical condition. He was a skilled, experienced cat burglar and may have began as such. Had a criminal record as a teenager, which was expunged. Had some means of income, but did not work in the early morning hours. Hated women or for whatever they did wrong to him. If married, he was probably had a submissive spouse who tolerated his deviant behavior. He was intelligent and articulate, probably began as a voyeur in his late teens or early 20s. He was neat and well organized in his personal life and drove a well-maintained car, peeped in the windows of many people who were not attacked, possibly unmarried and did not enter into long-term relationships, self-assured and confident, who would continue committing violent crimes until incapacitated by a person, death, or other intervention, and would have been described by those who knew him as arrogant, domineering, manipulative, and a chronic liar. So the profile speculated that the killer might have been incarcerated after Janelle Cruz's murder or killed in the commission of a similar crime. It suggested that a review of the late 1980s hot pile burglaries in which a lone male offender had been killed and indicated a slight chance that the Golden State Killer committed suicide and that he was unlikely to be confined in a mental institution. According to the profile, teleprinter bulletins were broadcast to law enforcement agencies throughout the U.S. after the original homicides. The bulletins requested information on similar home invasions, including sexual assault, murder, bludgeoning, multiple victims, and bondage. As of 2015, no similar cases had been reported. The profile posited that the Golden State Killer could have continued committing his crimes in another country whose records were not linked. Okay, so now I kind of want to talk about the phone calls. So in March 18th, 1977, there was a phone call and he said, end quote, "I'm the East Side rapist," end quote. So on March 18th, 1977, the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office received 3 calls from a man claiming to be the East Area Rapist. None were recorded. The first 2 calls received at 4:15 and 4:30 p.m. were identical and ended up with the caller laughing and hanging up. The final call came in at 5 p.m. with the caller saying, "I'm the East Side Rapist and I am my next victim already stalked and you guys can't catch me." Another call was made on December 2nd, 1977, end quote, "You're never gonna catch me," end quote. A man claiming to be the rapist called the Sacramento police saying, "You're never gonna catch me, East Area Rapist, you dumb fuckers. I'm gonna fuck again tonight. Careful." The call was recorded and later released. Similarly to the previous call, the East Area Rapist attacked his next victim the same night. Kind of crazy. I would be scared to get any of these calls. On another instance, on December 9th, 1977, a previous victim received a phone call during the 1977 Christmas season, which she attributed to her attacker. The caller said, "Merry Christmas, it's me again." Shortly before 10 p.m. on December 10th, 1977, Sacramento authorities received 2 identical calls saying, "I'm going to hit again tonight, Watt Avenue." Both were recorded and the caller was identified as the same person who placed the December 2nd call. Law enforcement patrols were increased that night, and at 2:30 a.m. a masked man eluded officers after being seen bicycling on the Watt Avenue Bridge. When spotted again at 4:30 a.m., he got rid of the bike and fled on foot. So that's that one. And then the first known rape victim received a wrong number call asking for Ray on January 2nd, 1978. The call was recorded and police suspected that it may be the same caller who made a threatening. Okay, so a man claiming to be the East Area Rapist called the contract counseling service and said, "I have a problem. I need help because I don't want to do this anymore." After a short conversation, the caller said, "I believe you are tracing this call," and hung up. And then in the later calls between 1982 and 1991, in 1982, a previous victim received a call at her workplace, which was a restaurant, during which the rapist threatened to rape her again. According to Contra Costa County investigator Paul Holes, the rapist must have chanced to patronize the restaurant and recognize his victim there. In 1991, a previous victim received a phone call from the perpetrator and spoke with him for 1 minute. She could hear a woman and children in the background, leading to speculation that he had a family. On April 6, 2001, one day after an article in the Sacramento Bee linked the original Night Stalker and the East Area Rapist, a victim of the rapist received a call from him. He asked, "Remember when we played?" So now I want to talk about the investigation. So before officially connecting the original Night Stalker to the East Area Rapist in 2001, some law enforcement officials, particularly from the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, sought to link the Goleta cases as well. The links were primarily due to the similarities in MO. One of the already linked original Night Stalker double murders occurred in Ventura, which is 40 miles or 64 kilometers southeast of Goleta, and the remaining murders were committed in Orange County, an additional 90 miles or 140 kilometers southeast. In 2001, several rapes in Contra Costa County believed to have been committed by the East Area Rapist were linked by DNA to the Smith, Harrington, Whithoon, and Cruz murders. A decade later, DNA evidence indicated that the Domingo Sanchez murders were committed by the Golden State Killer. On June 15, 2016, the FBI released information related to the crimes, including new composite sketches and crime details. A $50,000 reward and was also announced. The initiative included a national database to support law enforcement investigating the crimes and handle tips and information. Okay, so now I want to talk about the suspects. So during the investigation, several people were considered and eliminated as suspects. So the first one was Brett Glasby from Goleta was considered a suspect by the Santa Barbara County investigators. He was murdered in Mexico in 1982 before the murder of Janelle Cruz. This eliminated him as a suspect, obviously. So another one was Paul Schneider, a high-ranking member of the Arraign Brotherhood, was living in Orange County when the Harringtons, Manuela Whithoon, and Janelle Cruz were killed. A DNA test cleared him in the 1990s. And then Joe Elsip, which is a friend and business partner of the victim, Lemon Smith. Elsip's pastor said that Elsip had been confessed to him during the family counseling session. Elsip was arraigned for the Smiths' murder in 1982, but the charges were later dropped, and his innocence was confirmed by DNA testing in 1997. In November 2002, journalist Colleen Kaysen wrote a newspaper series about the murders for the Ventura County Star. According to Kaysen, Detective Larry Poole of the Orange County Sheriff's Department visited California's death row at San Quentin in an attempt to locate the Golden State Killer. Poole suspected that the killer had been captured and sentenced to death for another violent crime. However, no genetic samples collected from death row inmates matched the DNA of the Golden State Killer. Okay, so now let's talk about Joseph James D'Angelo. So on April 24, 2018, Sacramento County Sheriff's deputies arrested him, which he was a former police officer in Auburn and Exeter, California. He was charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances. On May 10th, the Santa Barbara County District Attorney's Office charged D'Angelo with 4 additional counts of first-degree murder. Identification of D'Angelo had begun 4 months earlier when officials led by Detective Paul Holt and the FBI lawyer Steve Kramer uploaded the killer's DNA profile from a Ventura County rape kit to the personal genomics website GED Match. The website identified 10 to 20 people who had the same great-great-great-grandparents as the Golden State Killer. A team of 5 investigators working with Barbara Ray-Venter used this list to construct a large family tree. From this tree, they established 2 suspects. One was ruled out by relatives' DNA tests, leaving D'Angelo as the main suspect. On April 18th, a DNA sample was collected from the door handle of D'Angelo's car, and later another sample was collected from a tissue found in D'Angelo's curbside garbage can. Both were matched to samples associated with the Golden State Killer crimes. After he was arrested, some commentators raised concerns about the ethics of the secondary use of personally identified. So that is all I have for the Golden State Killer case. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below if you want me to do any other cases. Go check out my IGTV on Instagram for more videos. Follow me on there. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.